Good evening, everyone. This is Fred Finley. I'm the chair of the South Pasadena Finance Commission. Today is December 17th, 2020. The time is 6:38 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order. Do the roll call. Commissioners Choi.
Here.
Commissioner Elsner.
Here.
Commissioner Wood.
Here.
Commissioner Tao.
Here.
Everyone in attendance. Okay, good. Except for City Treasurer Pia. He has not attended yet. We'll expect him a little later. Also, we have staff present here. We have Interim Assistant City Manager Elaine Aguilar. Our Finance Manager, where is she here? Armin Tishion. And our Accounting Manager, Albert Trin. Do we have any public comments?
No comments were received for this meeting this evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right then. Let's begin with our action discussion item number 1, the Finance Annual Report and Work Plan.
Members of the commission, some of you who have been on the commission for a while know that each year each of the city's commissions put together an annual presentation that's presented at what is referred to as the Commissioners Congress. It's an opportunity for all of the commissions to present a year in review, what the significant issues or projects or things that the commission dealt with over the previous year. It is put into an annual report format. The template was included in your agenda packet this evening. This item is on the agenda so that the commission, and I believe the chair has offered to type this up, but so that the commission can provide input into the, they call them notable events, 1, 2, and 3. 3 notable events or accomplishments that you would like to highlight of all the wonderful things the commission did over the past year. The second part of this assignment is the work plan. The work plan is a forward-looking document. I noted that last year staff provided a draft of that document, so I did that for you this year. It is completely at the commission's discretion authority to add, modify, delete, revise the 2021 work plan in any way that the commission deems is appropriate. So you do have a draft of that in your agenda packet also. Regarding significant dates, we will bring the tonight's for discussion and allow you to begin to put the information together for the annual report and also to discuss your work plan. Then at your January meeting, we will take the work plan and we'll take the annual report back to the commission. The reason there's this two-step process is that there can be new commissioners that might join in January. In our case, there are no new commissioners, but this will come back to your January meeting for another review and to actually approve the work plan. Then February 16th is when all of the annual reports and work plans are due to the city clerk's office. The Commissioners Congress will be conducted via Zoom in a virtual event this year because of COVID. That is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. And that will be, I don't know the time of that meeting yet, but it will be a meeting such as this where members of the public can tune in and watch the proceedings. And then on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 is when the annual work plan and annual report is presented to the City Council at the March 3rd City Council meeting for them to receive and file all of the commission's annual reports and work plans. So that's the schedule that we were provided by the City Clerk's office. At this point, I would turn it back to the chair to begin discussion and preparation of, I guess, the annual report first, which is the past year in review. To do that item first, and then we can move on to the 2021 work plan when you're ready. So at this point, I'll turn it over to the chair.
All right then. Our annual report in terms of excuse me, our accomplishments for the past year, I'm looking for the fellow commissioners to give some input on that in terms of what our accomplishments were during the past year. Let me begin by saying one of the things we did, we set up the ad hoc sub finance committee. We'd set that up. I think that's an important accomplishment for doing that. And in terms of working the ad hoc subcommittee, working with the finance department and working with them to find ways to help them improve their financial reporting, to also to expedite the preparation of the budget and the submission of the budget of the city council to the commission, finance commission, as well as the completion of the audit and the CAFR. I think that those are very important things we did in conjunction with the ad hoc finance committee. Any comments on that? The other thing I think we did, we worked with the finance department earlier this year with regards to the preparation of the budget for the 2021 year. And we worked with them with regards to getting public comments on the budget and the preparation of the budget. And we went through several iterations of that budget in order to come up with a plan eventually to submit to the city council. And I think that was a pretty momentous thing we did, because the time that I've been on the city commission, that's not something we've done before in terms of getting so much input from the public. And again, we work in conjunction with the finance department to do that. So I think that's another accomplishment. Those two come to mind immediately. Any other suggestions in terms of our accomplishments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Gary. By the way, thank you, City Treasurer Gary Pia.
Yeah, sorry for the delay in my arrival. I just got here as quickly as I could. Public comment has always been an item on the commission's agenda. However, prior to this year and this year's events, I can only think maybe of once or twice in the past 10 years or so that we've even had any public comment. So I think it's great that that we had that kind of engagement this year, but it's what's different is that it was present, not that we hadn't solicited it. It's always been available. Yes,
I got a good input. One of the advantages we've had this year, and again, a lot of it has to do with the COVID, is we've gone virtual.
Concur.
By going virtual, we've gained access. The public has access to our meetings, but which we didn't have before. And I think that's a great accomplishment that we've made through that, and it's something we'll have going forward.
I agree. It's made it easier.
Yes, it has. It is.
You know, the meetings were there, but people had to physically show up, and that wasn't as convenient for folks as this is.
Correct. Yeah. Any other ideas or suggestions we should do in terms of our Finance Commission accomplishments? Okay.
I don't have any new suggestions, but I just kind of want to echo your comments, especially, I mean, coming on the commission as a brand new person and having my first virtual meeting, and then we're immediately thrust into one of the more notable controversies in the city with the budget. And I think that all that wrapped up together, working with the finance department to generate a budget, reviewing and getting thoughtful consideration and discussion about public comments, and then ultimately coming to a decision to put the brakes on the budget process, which ordinarily I would say that's you want to pass a budget and have everything be great. But under the circumstances, I think the commission made the right call in that it has led to positive changes and improvements in the city. So I think that's, you can take a bad situation and come out of the end in better shape. And I think that the commission and all of us, and the finance department, and Elaine and all of us kind of played a big role in that. And I think that's really something that we can be proud of.
Thank you.
If I may add, the word nimble comes to mind. My congratulations to you, Mr. Chair, and the rest of the commissioners for being as flexible and as diligent. And for what's worth to you, I would like that. I'd like that message put out there too.
Okay, thank you.
Did we this year, didn't we do the fee schedule? Or was that last year?
As a prior year.
I think that was last year because I kind of remember it being in person.
Yeah, that was a prior year. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we've come up with our accomplishments. I'll prepare a draft of that, write it up among other things.
And we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yes, next agenda. That's correct.
Okay. The next item would be the 2021 work plan. I noticed I didn't change name of commission. I probably should change that. It still says name of commission at the top. We'll make that finance commission. I did look at last year's work plan, and some of these things you'll see are repeats from last year's work plan. In addition, I added some items. I was still trying to keep it to one page, which is, you have so much work ahead of you this year, commissioners. It was challenging. So I really tried to emphasize what I felt were the major issues. There's going to be the routine things that are going to come before you, routine things that the commission does at various times of the year. So I would be glad to give you a little background on each, go through the items quickly, see if you're comfortable with these, see if so you can understand what my thought process was. If you'd like, and plus, when you're working with a new finance director, you'll be able to, relay him or her what the thought process was at the time. The first objective I have there is updating the city's financial policy. This is the policy document that is approved as part of the budget process. That's when cities normally approve this. It's the overarching general budget policies, things like when the budget should be presented, the dates, what the reserve, what the recommended general fund reserve should be. The city has had one of these every year in their budgets. I think it would be a good time to just take another look at that and possibly enhance it a bit. Some of the things that I've just heard since I've been with the city is some tighter control in terms of dates of things, like dates that a quarterly financial report should be presented to the commission and then to the council, so that these things don't fall off of calendars. And before you know it, a year, 6-8 months have gone by and there hasn't been a quarterly financial report presented. So just sort of tightening up the policy a little bit, I think it's worth the commission and all of us taking another look at that. Okay. So the timeline for that is March, because that's about the time we like to be able to present the current fiscal year budget to the council. So I gave a timeline of that of March. If we can get it to you sooner, we will. But I wanted to have some goals for us to aim at. The next one, of course, is the continued work on our comprehensive annual financial report. We're working, as you're aware, on the 2020 audit. We hope to start being able to bring the first draft to you around March. So that's item self-explanatory there. The next one, of course, is the budget, the current year budget. You could put on here because you've heard this a few times. We're working on the 2021 budget. Hopefully that'll be all approved and put to bed February, March. Really, come April, it's time to start the new fiscal year budget. I just realized looking at this, you really have two budgets that probably should be on here, the 2021 and also the 21-22. So that's just something I saw as I'm going over this with you, probably should be on here too. With a timeline. So I'll add that one, the 2021, 2022.
Is March still the expected date for the current budget?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That hasn't changed. And then the due date for, of course, and I'm speaking for someone, the new finance director isn't here yet. Hopefully these will get back on schedule again in April, May, June. By June, there'll be an adopted budget like there should be. So we'll start work on that, as long as I'm here and with your current staff, we'll start working on the next fiscal year budget. As soon as we get this one far enough along, we'll start working on the next one, doing the preliminary work behind it.
When you say
Probably
June,
should add that item.
when
As
you
I said,
say, excuse me, when you say June for the 2021-22 budget, that really should be submitted to the Finance Commission probably in May, right? Yes.
Do we still even need this year's budget?
Yes, we do. By law, we do need this year's budget. Our auditors are going to need something but plus we need to know what we should have we need to know we need a budget for this year. We need to know what our projected deficit is going to be, especially.
No, I mean, like our default budget right now for this year is basically last year, right? So, so as opposed to spending time and tweaking things, which by the time it'll be March, should we just focus that time and say, okay, the budget for this year is last year and the budget for next year, let's make some real changes for.
The reason we can't do that is because our expenditures are significantly different because of the COVID related expenditures.
Okay.
Because of various hiring freezes and cost reduction steps that have been taken already. The numbers are going to be different. Even though we carried over last year's budget, it's really not going to be the same. The two budgets aren't going to be the same. And the biggest concern is the revenue. The revenue numbers are going to be completely different now because we know what the impact, we have a better idea of what the impact of COVID is going to be on our city finances. So it truly is going to be a different looking budget than what was presented, but you're correct. It's not going to, it's going to be an updating of the current budget while it's a little bit more than updating because we really do need to review all the numbers. We need to look at all the expenditures over again, all the revenues over again. We need to update the entire part of the budget where we look at what our fund balances were. Because as you recall, that was what the biggest issue last year. We do now know what our 2019 fund balances are. And then we'll be able to use in another month or two, which is the only thing holding this up is I want really good 2020 numbers. So we'll be able to use unaudited 2020 numbers, but they'll be unaudited, but they'll be close. The auditors always make some fine tuning, but I would really like to get some good 2020 numbers in here. So we have a good 21 budget because you're going to need that to lead into a really good 22 budget. They all feed into one another. It's a long way of answering that yes, we still need to do one this year and it'll lead to better documentation for a really good budget for 21-22.
Maybe slightly off track, but are we gonna know would we know roughly how we're tracking or what are the finances look like on the revenue and expense side for the city this year?
Around February, March.
Okay, so that's the first
part
of
of the budget.
Quarterly. Because we were talking about kind of getting a quarterly update, but that was like for September and then everything happened. And then so there's no quarterly update for September, no quarterly update for December.
Correct.
So kind of February, March.
Well, it's been discussed publicly already. Bank recs were very behind and you really can't do a quarterly update of your bank recs. It's almost so much hinges on those. We're where we've got those, we had to concentrate on getting them done so we could get the 2019 budget CAFR done, and now to get the 2020 budget CAFR done. So that's a reason why you didn't get, I'm assuming, because I wasn't here, but I'm assuming that's the reason why you hadn't received quarterly updates in the past, is those are hard to do if you don't have bank recs done and all the other month end closing things that should happen. If those aren't done, you really can't, there's nothing to generate.
And I heard someone else in another city council say this, that, and I don't know how relevant it is for us, but sales tax revenue, they were saying that their sales tax revenue actually didn't decline by that much because they were a small city without much retail. And actually, when everyone is now shopping from home and getting things mailed to their houses, they're getting a larger percent of that sales tax, because the tax is then charged to their home-based locations or where their home is. So all of these people in South Pass that were shopping in like the Alhambra Target and now just ordering things delivery to South Pass Target, they're actually getting that sales tax revenue. Is that a case for us?
Unfortunately, no. In fact, I would be glad to. You know, I noticed one of the things on your 2020 plan, if you look down here, it has tax revenues. It's the third from the bottom, is the semi-annual reports on sales and property tax revenues. Those should be presented to you at least twice a year. I am planning, I can do that for you in January. We can do a presentation on what our property tax and sales taxes are looking, what we think they're going to be this year. Preliminarily, property taxes is not as big an issue in South Pasadena, because as you're aware, property values remain strong, even in downturns in South Pasadena. But sales tax information, the sales tax revenues are definitely down. The primary reason is so much of South Pasadena's sales tax was restaurant dependent. We don't have the big box store, and unfortunately, they haven't totally perfected when people buy online to make sure that that sales tax gets allocated to the city. It's not as perfected as you think it should be. So there's money that goes into pools at the county level and state level, and then it's sent out according to population. So smaller cities are going to get a smaller amount than bigger cities.
Wait, but our 75 cents, I thought, was coming straight to us. That's what everyone voted on.
No, okay, there's different. I'm talking the general sales tax revenue. That is down. We do have the voter approved measure. I'm going from it. Is measure A? Is it measure A? Albert?
Yes, it's measure A.
Measure A.
That's
Those
the 70.
those revenues just started coming in the tail end in the beginning of this fiscal year, so we can provide estimates on those. And that was the additional sales tax revenue, and we're receiving those now too. They're not, again, as strong as was originally anticipated, but it is coming in.
So Elaine, we had last year, or actually earlier this year, I think, we had a presentation on the sales tax expectations. And during that, we were told that there will be some items, not all items that are sent, but some items the sales tax will go to the end user's location, but not on everything, right? Yeah.
Right. So I can bring that. We have that. I can bring that. Right. It's here. It says for January, and I do plan to bring you the sales tax numbers in January. We can do that because we do have those reports. And again, they are down, and it's because a great portion of us it's restaurant related. And when the restaurants all keep getting shut down, they're just not bringing in the sales tax revenues that we normally receive. There's a neat chart that shows where our sales taxes are coming from. And we are very dependent on our wonderful restaurants. People come from other places to eat at our restaurants. And so when they close down or reduce operations, we see it right away in our sales taxes.
I'm actually curious. So if everyone is ordering like takeout through DoorDash and whatnot on restaurant to their house, does that restaurant revenue then get allocated to that final residence?
It does, but you know what it comes down to is, let's say before, you know, and every family's different, but to very overgeneralize, there were families that would literally be eating out in restaurants almost every night. COVID hits, maybe they order in, you know, 2-3 times a week. So there's just overall a decrease. And it shows it, I can show you, it shows it in our numbers.
Okay.
It'll be really interesting to see that, actually, Elaine. Thank you.
Mhm. And that's scheduled for January. That's the third item from the bottom. So I'll bring that in. It's very interesting information. Like I said, sales taxes are doing, you know, they're holding steady. Property taxes are holding steady. Sales taxes have dropped. Let's see here. The next one is, this was a city council requested item that the city treasurer will be presenting about reviewing our debt, our water bonds, to see whether or not there's some savings and possibly refinancing those. I've spoken to the city treasurer. I lost my Zoom meeting. I'll go. I've spoken to the city treasurer about this item. He's aware of it. He was at the meeting. I've put that down on the calendar for 2021. And then we can report out to the city council the results of that. The next item has to do with the PERS prepayment options for the city's unfunded liability. It's not just PERS, it's also our other post-employment benefits referred to as OPED. We will be looking at options for those. In a nutshell, I don't know how familiar the commissioners are with that, but we have these large, it's shown in our audit, when the audit was presented to you, we have these large outstanding liabilities. If you look at what it's going to cost the city to pay for all the pensions and all the other post-employment benefits, there are options where you can, basically comes down to giving more money now up front so you owe less over the long run, is in a nutshell. So we'll be looking at those options. The council would like that to go through the commission first to get your recommendation before it goes to them, to see if there's an option that might be good for South Pasadena to help reduce the long-term costs of those post-employment benefits. So that's that item. The next one is one that is annual, that should come to you each year, and that's the master fee schedule. We do have a new, as you're aware, an updated master fee schedule. What I could tell, best I could tell from last year's work plan is staff should be bringing that to you in June, because the new fees go into effect in July, just for your review. So you can see what the fees are, make sure we've calculated the percentage increase correctly. That was something that I was on your last year's schedule, so I went ahead and included it on this year's schedule too. The next item was something else that was requested by the city council, is to review our investment performance, have our advisors come in and give a presentation to the commission on what the goals are for our portfolio, and with an eye on looking at carbon neutral investing. To see the council was interested in that. So I have that scheduled for a little further along in the year, around September. And that would be when our advisor would actually attend the meeting, participate in the meeting, and give you an update on what their goals are. And we can discuss these suggestions from the city council. The next thing is the monthly treasurer's investment report. This is an item that's already on your agenda this evening to begin discussion about, so I won't go into much detail here, but there was a request to revise the way we estimate our 6-month financial needs. We'll discuss that a bit more when we get to item number 4 on your agenda this evening, so I won't go much more into that. The next one, we've talked about already, is bringing you twice a year our estimates for sales taxes and property tax revenues. And then the next item, I have a typographical error. It's the financial sustainability plan, not play, plan. This was on your schedule last year. I wasn't aware this existed till I was doing work for the staff report. There is a long-term financial stability plan, And the commission is supposed to receive quarterly updates on that plan. I don't have much more information for you than that right now. I haven't had a chance to see what's in it and what we're supposed to be bringing back, but it's scheduled. Your first update is scheduled to come back in January. So we'll have much more information for you by then. And then the last big item is as a result of the auditor's work, and a review of the finance department. There is a need to update our procedures, the finance procedures, some improved internal controls, create some policies and procedures where they are currently lacking. We are working, that's one of the areas where we're working with the finance ad hoc committee, and it needs to come to the commission next before it goes to the city council. So we did begin work. I have already identified a list of policies and procedures, and we are working with the committee to prioritize them and figure out which ones we need to do sooner, which ones are, I think I categorized them as A, B, and C to start working on the A's so we can get them implemented and to the commission as soon as possible. And that's it. I'd be glad to, if you would like to add anything, commissioners, revise anything. I'd be looking for your input at this point.
Yeah, I actually had one idea. I think we briefly discussed it maybe last time or the meeting before that, regarding the investment portfolio. So it looks like we're going to have a discussion with the advisors, maybe September or so. So what I would suggest is maybe sometime before that. It could be right after year end, or it could be just right before the September meeting. Do our own analysis of historical performance based on what we've done so far. And I mean, it could be pretty basic. Like I think Gary has mentioned that he has access to some of the historical data. So something as simple as just analyzing performance based on all the month-end values and just kind of compare it versus some benchmarks. I think will give us a good idea of how they're doing, and then they'll kind of get us a little bit more prepared for any potential meeting with them.
I think that's a good idea. I think that this entire topic has to be couched in context of the investment policy that we're constrained to follow. Every time, and I'm not, it's easy for me to overgeneralize, and I don't want to do that, but very often when we're talking about looking at an investment portfolio, the first topic that comes to mind is performance. And that's actually the third priority in our investment policy. Our first priority is the safety of the principal. The second priority is liquidity. And then the third priority is to generate yield consistent with the first two priorities. And so I don't want to say that makes it a challenge to look at performance, but it has to factor into any discussion that we have around it, because we're not absolutely looking for the best return.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so of course it'd be some type of risk adjusted performance. I mean, we're not going to be comparing it to the S&P 500. That makes no sense.
Well, of course not.
Right. So
and I get your point, yeah. and I agree.
Yeah.
We're certainly doing, and when we get to that topic, we'll find we're certainly doing far better than 30-day Treasury yields, which is what we were getting prior to hiring Western Asset Management. We're not getting, and one of the challenges we'll encounter is finding an appropriate benchmark, because we can't compare to a 5-year bond benchmark because we don't go out that far, So I'm just adding this as context for the conversation. It's an appropriate conversation we should have, and I look forward to to the commission wrapping its collective head around it.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, we're really limited as to what we can and can't invest in.
Correct, we are.
And so aren't other cities also doing the same? Don't they have the same criteria? And therefore, couldn't we see what other cities are doing, and maybe that would help us find a benchmark, I mean, a comparison?
I'm sure that staff could find examples of other cities that are approaching their invested funds similarly to us. A lot of cities just default to the state-run portfolio, which would be an appropriate benchmark to include in our conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, if we come up with 2 or 3 benchmarks, then
Right.
that alternative should definitely be one, I think, because that is a real option for us.
Concur.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
It's the bond version of LAIF is what it essentially is. There's another element that was in, and I don't know if this is the time to bring this up, but Elaine, you mentioned that Councilmember Mahmood asked that the commission look into, as she put it, carbon neutrality. That actually broaches a larger subject that is covered by the acronym ESG, environment, sustainability, and governance. Socially responsible investing has come a long way in the last 10 years or so. But defining what it means to us and coming to an agreement on what that looks like for the city of South Pasadena is a much bigger discussion. And I certainly, it's not a binary issue. It's not, are we going to be socially responsible or are we not? If we say we want to go down that path, then what does that path look like for us? And what are the priorities for South Pasadena? So, it's a topic on the table, and council has asked for the commission to wrestle with it. And we can certainly get some further guidance from our investment advisor, Morgan Stanley, on the topic. It's not the first time it's been brought up to them, I'm sure. So that more to come on all that.
I will add I'll come up with the wording, but basically it's an analysis of the historic performance of our investment portfolio, developing benchmarks, and we'll schedule that for July or August, so it's before that September meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we skip August in terms of meetings.
Oh,
So
that's right,
so it would
July.
have to be June or July.
Okay, I'll do July because June you'll be busy with budgets, so I'll do July.
Okay.
July's probably good timing. And there isn't anything in here on July at this moment, so that's probably a good time.
Okay, good.
Okay. Is the
I'll do-
commission comfortable with this very ambitious work plan for 2021?
Yes,
We will bring this back along, and staff will place the annual report back on your next agenda for next month, so you can take one more look at it. The next item, if you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
yes, I am. Next item on the agenda is the report of the ad hoc committee. And just bear with me, I'm going to get my notes here. We've had several meetings with the ad hoc committee, and most recently we had one last week on the 10th. And during this time, we, the committee, has worked with the finance department and worked with them in terms of one is they provided us a schedule for the completion of the audit and the for the year fiscal year 2019-20. Also, they're in the midst of preparing the preliminary budget for financial year 2021, which was discussed earlier. At the meeting we had on the 10th, Elaine, you mentioned that would be available for our meeting by the committee meeting in January. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. What
The preliminary budget for fiscal year 2021.
No, by January, I hope to have our good 2020 numbers put in the budget. So I would say more like February.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right then. Okay, February. All right. Also, the finance department had presented to the ad hoc committee examples of purchase orders and how to complete the purchase orders and trying to and make sure they're in compliance with the purchase policy and municipal code, make sure that they are in compliance. And we're discussing that and coming up with some ideas and some new policies with regards to purchasing. Just bear with me, let's get my notes here. We worked with them with their checklist with regards to, we were provided with a checklist for the finance department with regards to the update of the 2021-20 CAFR. Provides that checklist. Many items when that's completed, we'll have a follow-up meeting in January. Hopefully that checklist will be completed. As I mentioned earlier about the policy and procedures, we're looking at a number of things in terms of accounting policy and procedures, and we're reviewing that with the finance department. And those are the major items I have that we've covered so far. Elaine, did I miss anything?
Unless our other committee member, Ed, I don't know if you'd like to add anything?
Yeah, I think I just have a few kind of highlights in my mind. We've had discussions in the last two meetings about bank reconciliations, and it sounds like we're caught up as to June at this point, which is good news. Albert was really forthcoming about the bank reconciliation procedure, and we learned that he is currently using Excel files to do that, but going forward for the next fiscal year, we'll be using a module in the accounting software, which should help things. We've had quite a bit of discussions in general just about policies and how they're developed and adopted and implemented, and where they're kept and how they might be reviewed periodically and updated, and who's going to be accountable for them. So, we're not only going to be looking at individual policies, but we're also kind of talking more broadly about sound methods for developing them, adopting them, and maintaining them. And I, want to thank Elaine for being really forthcoming about looking for our current policies and not necessarily being able to find them easily. And then once they're found, not being able to tell how or when or if they've ever been approved. So the committee is really focused on fixing that and making sure that going forward we have sound policies, and that we have a general policy that will keep them current and updated, easily located, and updated and reviewed when necessary. So I think there's been a lot of discussion about the purchase order policy, and I know that was one of Elaine's priorities. And so we're going to be looking at a purchase order packet, and kind of, there's been a lot of discussion and questions just about the nitty gritty of how it happens. And so we're looking more deeply into that. And Elaine identified purchasing policy as I think one of her first priorities in terms of policies that the committee will be looking at. And she gave us a pretty big data dump of policies from other cities, and and I think all of us with the holidays, we haven't really done a deep dive on them yet, but they've been found in other cities, collected and assembled, and will be really useful, I think, to the committee in terms of once we get down to looking into implementing and developing these policies, and then bring that to the commission. Let me see, a couple other things. Good news that was reported at the last meeting is that the City Council had approved additional money to hire CalPERS retirees, such as Elaine, to help out with the CAFR and the budget. And one of them, Marcy Medina, Elaine reported, has been very busy and very productive, and that has freed up her time and also Albert's time. And so at this point, the city hasn't found the need to hire the second CalPERS retiree to help with the budget. Is that the current state of affairs still?
Yes, it is. In fact, just to very, very briefly, money is tight. So the second position for the budget was authorized by the council, but I don't want to bring the position in until it's absolutely the right point in time and necessary to do so that it can be for the fewest number of hours and expense possible. So at this point, we've been able to, Albert and I have already started meeting. We've met with 2 departments already. So we're starting the budget process. And then again, I want to strategically, I guess best way to say is strategically bring this person on at the right time, so that it's exactly when we need the person, we're ready for them, and it's a concentrated 2 weeks, 3-week effort, and then they're done, so that we use that appropriation as conservatively as possible. So you're right, we haven't needed that position yet, and we'll see how it goes. So far, we're doing okay.
Sounds good. And I think the last good news was Elaine gave a little bit of an update on the hiring of a permanent finance director. And as of the last meeting, there were applications due at the end of that week. And it's kind of interesting to hear about the hiring process. There's going to be a panel of finance directors from other cities that are going to review the applications and narrow down the candidates. And I believe the panel is interviewing their top candidates. Is that correct?
Right. I was incorrect. The applications actually close, I think, tomorrow, today or tomorrow. So I was a week off. The filing period closes today or tomorrow. And then the city's normal process is that there's an external panel, is what we call it. Could be finance directors, could be city managers, assistant city managers, positions higher than the finance director. And they do the initial interviewing. And then ultimately it's the city manager then who will interview the finalists and make the selection.
Yeah, and I think there was, again, at both of our recent meetings, the committee expressed interest and desire that a finance commissioner play a role in the hiring process of the finance director.
And I have relayed that information to the city manager.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
I think those were the highlights, and really, I think I'm speaking on the behalf of the community. I think they would all agree that Elaine and Albert and Harmony, they've been just fantastic in really being patient and answering all of our questions and giving us straightforward answers. And we're just impressed with your audit timeline and ticking off the boxes and keeping on track. And we have really high confidence in the finance department and staff right now. So that's been a really good thing that has come out of the committee. Is we're pretty confident that things are on the right track and moving forward. So thank you.
I have a question. I have 2 questions, actually. One was, Albert, how are we, where are you on the bank recs?
We're kind of putting the bank recs on hold because we're focused on muni billing reconciliation, which is our utility billing process. what happened was we went from having Global Water Fathom. They went out of business, and we transitioned to muni billing immediately. And because of the quick transition period, we were kind of set back by the setup process. We were more focused on the customer end, but the accounting side of it was kind of backlogged with the audit that we were behind on. So that was also dragged behind. So we're getting that caught up and reconciling that. We're getting very close to it, and we're gonna have muni billing help us with the reconciliation process. So right now, we're stopped in June of the bank rec, and we're focusing on the muni billing, because the muni billing, the utility billing, is also affecting the bank reconciliation process too.
Right. Our goal is to get through June 30th, obviously, and then July and August very quickly, because sometimes some of the July and August revenues, for example, belong in the previous fiscal year. The only remaining piece, is this reconciliation of muni billing. Probably the best way, I gave the example to the committee, the best way to explain it is if you can picture your own, a bank rec where you have a checking account, when every individual customer, you pay one by credit card and another one by a check and another one by an automatic debit from their account. Essentially, every one of those individual items is hitting our bank account. And there's literally thousands of them. And so it's a process of identifying them, pulling them out, making sure they match the records that muni billing is giving us that states how much money we have received from them, and making sure it all matches. And it's kind of messy, but once we get muni billing's help, it'll be much cleaner going forward. And we need to come out with sort of this translation report, probably the best way to explain it, so that they can give it to us in a format that makes it much easier and quicker for us to book the revenues. But that's what's holding us up at the moment. It's that last remaining piece is the muni billing.
When do you anticipate that being finished?
Mid-January at the latest.
Great, great. And then I guess my other question is, when are you changing over the process for doing bank recs?
We're not changing over the process per se. I think what was alluded to earlier is we are doing an upgrade to our financial software. There was a big item on the agenda a while back for the to upgrade our servers and our software. There is a module on there that should make this process easier. I don't have the timing. I know they've started it, but you don't undergo a change while you're finishing up an audit. So this is something I don't think we'll fully be able to start using for another few months, because you don't want to do it in the middle of getting the audit done.
That makes sense, totally. Thank you.
But there are some need. In fact, at some point, I'm not going to put it on your work plan, but at some point, staff should come back to you. Like I said, it's a few months out. There are really some time saving, some improved internal controls on the purchasing side, on various parts of it with this new software upgrade that are going to make an improvement in how we currently do things. And I think it would be exciting from a nerdy perspective to kind of share some of those improvements with the commission once we get it implemented, and to tell you the benefits of upgrading the software and some of the staff time savings, and also the improved internal controls.
Great. And so is that something that the ad hoc committee is also dealing with staff on?
No, the upgrade is an internal staff. Yeah, no, but we probably will, similar to you, is I think it's important information. It's a piece of this big puzzle before us. We need to use technology to its fullest to improve the services that the finance department provides. So it'll be interesting information, and we'll share it with them too.
Great.
I should mention too, just to back up just one moment, what we're using, what the committee is using, and is we've decided to use to determine which policies and procedures need to be updated or created. Initially, we're it was a very wise decision to use the audit management letter as our basis. And because those are the things our auditor said we needed to improve. So we're kind of using that as our guiding principles of which policies to update initially, so we can respond to those issues. And and then after we get those things, then we'll move on to the other improvements we know we need to make. But we're using the management letter as sort of our guiding document.
Good, because we don't want those management points again.
No.
There was one last thing that I just remembered that's kind of fun is we actually created a ad hoc committee subcommittee of me and Fred and one of our other committee members, Pete Giulioni, and our task was to search through city council records, agenda reports and minutes and agenda, and find items that happened during the fiscal year 2019-2020 that had an effect some way or another on the budget. Contract approvals, dipping into reserves, things like that. And so what we did is we divvied up the fiscal year. We each got a 4-month block, and Fred is the one that raised. He went through all his months pretty quickly, and Pete and I are still working on it, but we're going to have everything ready hopefully before the end of the year. I'm pretty sure that'll happen, but that's been kind of fun, and it's just a project that's will hopefully help make staff's jobs easier when it comes down to putting the CAFR information and getting everything ready for the auditors. So.
No,
So does that require just going over the minutes, or are you actually rewatching the meetings?
It's document driven. So
okay.
I don't know, we kind of bounced around some ideas, and I don't know how Fred did it, but what I did is I looked at agenda and kind of flagged certain items that might fall into what we were looking for. And then I would look at agenda reports and especially the section and the reports that, about financial impacts. And then you've got to follow that up with the minutes to see what actually happened. And it's a little bit of a, I don't know if I'd call it a puzzle, but it's sometimes kind of hard to follow what actually happened. But I haven't gotten to the point where I had to actually watch the meeting. But sometimes items get put over, and so you're kind of following them from month to month, and it's a little tricky, but it's fun. So we're going to put for each item that we find, we put together a little packet of a PDF that would include the information that the finance department needs in order to do what it has to do with the CAFR.
So that's basically something that staff had to do in the past, just to try and keep up.
Yeah. It's a huge time saving for staff, because
Yeah.
staff would have had to do this in the past. Because as you're aware, you have the approved budget document, but then during the year, the council does things that change that budget document. So the audit has what the final budget amount, what the final budgeted amounts are, and that's what the committee's working on right now. Once we get all of their information, then staff is going to have to double check to make sure that all those changes were made to the city's budget, so we have an accurate a final budget amount for the fiscal year.
Ed, do you see that as being a tool for being able to reflect back to council, and I don't want to say in real time, but in close time, on the impact that decisions are made as we go throughout the year?
What would be I'm trying to understand your question, I'm sorry.
And I'm trying to formulate it. As you say, council will make decisions as the year goes on. I was going to say on the fly, but that's not what I mean. But they'll make decisions that do have a financial impact. Will this process aid staff in being able to reflect to council what that impact is, so that they are in a better position to decide if the action that they want to take is really the path they want to go down? Right.
In an ideal situation, exactly, these changes should be made as they're occurring, so that whether it's a quarterly or a mid-year budget update, whatever it is, they can see what the impact of all of previous decisions have been on the approved budget. So they do get a better feel on the overall big picture that their decisions, what their decisions have, how they've impacted the city finances.
That's kind of what I thought I was hearing. God love you. That's a big project. Good for you.
And I think one of the interesting things that I was wondering was when these decisions are made at the council level, is there a procedure in place by which it gets communicated to the finance department? Because these could be appropriations for other departments, you know, and it didn't seem to me that there was a really kind of clear directive or procedure that's supposed to be followed to make sure that the people who need to see it in the finance department see it. And I think Elaine is, you know, kind of cracking down on that a little bit and working on departments to improve the content of the agenda report that will make it easier for the finance people to find the information that they're looking for. So that's one of the kind of little, you know, little troubleshooting, you know, that's been going on. And, you know, Elaine is, you know, really kind of finding these little things everywhere and implementing fixes and, you know, which just helps everything overall. So.
You will notice if you look at, for instance, last night's city council agenda, anything that had a financial, it's even to the detailed level of in the financial impact saying what is the revenue account number that this revenue is going to go into if it's a grant, and what's the expenditure line item where the expenditure is going to come out of. That level of detail is now being put into our staff reports to make that easier for this process to happen. As Albert can tell you, because he had to do this for the 2019, you know, if there wasn't an account number, where are you supposed to, if they're approving a contract, where is that being paid out of? So we're making it much more easier, and I think better controls too. The council, everyone will know exactly which line item that dollar amount was appropriated to and which revenue, you know, that the revenue should go to. So it's going to make it much easier going forward.
That'll be incorporated in your accounting policies and procedures.
Exactly, and that's an area
That's what
where
we're doing. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Right, for how financial impact sections of staff reports should be prepared.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Do we have any other comments on the ad hoc committee? Questions? Anything? Next item is the Finance Commission calendar.
Members of the commission, you do have the calendar that was prepared for the meetings for the next year from January to December. Similar to the current year, there is no meeting in November, but as you're aware, should the need arise, any commission, council included themselves, can always schedule a special meeting or an additional meeting should something come up that's urgently needs to be handled. But the schedule is before you. It's still the last Thursday of the month. And if this schedule is okay with the commission, we'll get it to the city clerk's office so it can be put on the city's website.
Elaine, we had a discussion last couple of days here about the treasurer's report, city treasurer's report, these submits to the city council. That the last city council meeting, there was discussion about having that submitted to the Finance Commission before it comes to city council.
Right.
And how that may affect, if we follow through on that, how it may affect our calendar.
Right.
Well,
Gary,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Maybe we should take item number 4 and 5, Chairman, and then come back to
Okay.
Just in case.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Number 4 is.
Number 4, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
One of my papers here. Bear with me just a second here. I'm going to get my papers all messed up. Okay, pardon me. Number 4, discussion regarding the 6-month expenditure estimates for the treasurer's report.
I don't know, Treasurer Pia, if you'd like to take the lead on this one, or if you'd like to give me you'd like me to give a quick summary of what this is?
Well, I'll take a whack at it and let you fill in the gaps. The the concern is that we have a methodology for making projections that we have confidence in, simply put. Obviously, that there's a certain degree of consistency in our projections because the great majority of our expenditures relate to payroll, and payroll doesn't change that much from month to month. But having a more explicit methodology is the question that was put before us, and this is the point at which Elaine, you can jump in, because beyond payroll, what are the other factors that we should have in that that formula?
Sure. And then Albert, I see he's got his he can join into this also because he's the one who actually does the calculation. Basically, there is a requirement, it's in the government code, that as part of the treasurer's report, that there be a statement that the treasurer actually has to sign his name to, that there's enough liquidity in the city's investments and cash flow to cover a 6-month period of time of expenditure, 6 months worth of expenditures. So that statement was added to the city's treasurer report, and staff working with the city treasurer developed, it's basically a straight line, uses historical data and then straight line projects out using that historical data. Albert does adjust for, it is very heavy payroll driven because that's what most of our money is spent on, does adjust for the
inflation, cost of living, expenditures,
That's
step
right.
increases.
Mm-hmm. And so it's basically I don't want to call it simple, but it is simple. It's basically based on historical information, then is projected out over the next 6-month period with inflationary and CPI increases that Albert uses. Albert and I, in discussing this to make it and I did talk to a few of my finance director contacts to see what other cities are doing. Basically, most of them are doing exactly what we do, where you just base it on historical data and then you just extrapolate that over the next 6-month period. But I did say once also makes sense once we have an approved budget document, because the budget document says, you know, how much a department is supposed to spend for that fiscal year. So we could do a sort of hybrid, which we haven't done yet, a hybrid calculation that takes the 6-month estimate based on historical, but also takes our city budget data into account for what the budget data says, what the departments are going to spend that year, and estimating 6 months of budget expenditures. And somehow, and Albert and I will need to work on this, so we're getting a little more sophisticated. We're looking at our budget document to see what our expenditures are estimated to be. Plus, we're looking at historical data to come up with a more I guess, robust estimate of our 6-month worth of expenditure. One of the things I like to mention, and Albert is always bringing this to my attention, if you look at our whole total annual budget and you look at the total value of our investments, there's enough money sitting in all our investments to cover actually a year's worth of our expenditures. So at this point, it isn't we're not doing this because there's a concern there's not going to be enough money. Because if you look at it, you look at our total investments, you look at our total budget, there's more than enough money to cover it. But there was a request from the city council that we at least discuss this with the commission. And this is a preliminary discussion as Albert and I work together to figure out how to come up with this hybrid calculation. We'll bring it back to the commission at a later time, once we get an approved budget document, to see that if it's a calculation that you feel comfortable with and that the treasurer feels comfortable presenting to.
Just it's probably good for me to add that in my conversations with the interim assistant city manager about taking this hybrid approach, we're in harmony on that. I think I think it's well to mention that it's always been implicit in the monthly investment report that we have enough money on hand for 6 months. Now we're making it explicit. And we want to make sure that there is a forecasting methodology that is better than a wet finger in the wind, you know, that we're demonstrating procedural prudence on this. So I'm looking forward to the preliminary calculation methodology to be brought to the commission for you guys to weigh in on, and then we have something that we can set down in writing and explain to council and to anyone else for that matter who wants to know, how do we come up with these numbers, and why do we have confidence that we're in good shape where this is concerned?
And that's it on staff's part, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering, Elaine or Gary, you know, if you know the answer, does the government code require the methodology to be spelled out, or is that something that we want to do in the interest of transparency or explanation?
There's nothing that I've seen or read, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elaine, that stipulates what that methodology is.
It basically really just is a sentence that says, you know, there shall be an indication that there's enough liquidity for 6 months of expenses. It's that broad. In fact, it's
a one-liner in the investment policy.
It's a one-liner in our investment policy that's identical to what's in the government code. So right, there is no, unfortunately, it didn't include any information as to how you should calculate this, which is why I think it's a good idea for us to come up with a bit more, again, another policy, a bit more formal policy in how this calculation is done for transparency purposes. So I like the finger in those so people don't think we're just pulling a number out of the air.
Good.
No, I think that's good. There'll be, you know, just, it'll be.
I mean, when you look at the funds we have invested in, and you look at our cash position at LAIF and such, there's no question we have enough money, but there's no supporting methodology in place for making that projection, and it's well that we should have one.
Again, it's just part of honing our policy and procedures and having them known, available, written down, and followed.
And followed, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So staff will return at a later date with, once we get a chance to work with the city treasurer to formulate some kind of formula, and we'll be bringing it back to the commission. So you'll get to review it before it's finalized and we actually begin using it on our treasurer's reports going forward.
Okay. Item number 5, discussion regarding the timing of the treasurer's report.
This item was a question that was raised at the council meeting before, 1 or 2 council meetings ago, about whether or not the Finance Commission reviewed the monthly treasurer's report before it goes to the city council. The answer, of course, is no. And the reason is entirely one of timing. In order to present the most current information to the city council, there just isn't enough time to take it to the commission and get it to the council right away and quicker. I can have Albert give the timing of when we receive the documentation and when it appears on the city council. So, you know, I was at a loss to figure out how we could do this short of the council agreeing to receiving, you know, an information that might be a month or 2 in arrears, not the most current. I think given that choice, that might not be acceptable, but I figured it was worth a discussion with brighter minds to see if there is a way to make this somehow work or not. But at least we can get back to the city council with an explanation of why this can or can't be done, or what it would take to be able to do this. So I'll let Albert talk a bit about the timing, and Albert and Gary talk a bit about the timing of receiving the documents, preparing the report, and getting it onto the council's agenda.
So here's an example of the most recent monthly investment report that was presented to council yesterday. This is October's monthly investment report. So in order to prepare the monthly investment report, we have to wait until the month is over. So October ends on October 31st, but we have multiple financial institutions that that needs to be submitted to us before we could compile that report. Some of the information is readily available online, such as Bank of the West and Morgan Stanley, which I could get that immediately. However, there are other financial institutions that submits their statements much later. For example, Bank of New York Mellon, I don't get that report until probably close to end of the month in November. So once I receive that report, that's when I compile that report, and it's not done until probably either end of November or beginning of December. And we have to submit the staff report to be reviewed by management as well before it actually goes into council. Or we could submit that to Finance Commission, but it doesn't get into our meetings. So in terms of when I was done with the October's monthly investment report with the staff report, it was around early December.
And we try to submit that to, or but we, the city treasurer submits that to city council before the end of December.
Yes, so before I submit it to anyone else, I do submit it to city treasurer to review and approve of the report.
Okay.
I think what and I can't read the council's mind on this, but I'm extrapolating here. The desire to have this reviewed by the commission is, I'm sure, out of a desire that that we're doing this properly, and that you know, if there were some way to accelerate the gathering of the information, if there, you know, I don't know if there's an online access we can get from for all of the sources, so you can have it immediately, so that it can get to the commission in a timely fashion before it gets to the council in a timely fashion. Beyond that, if we have confidence in the methodology of making projections, perhaps that's sufficient to satisfy the thought behind why it was wanted to be presented to the commission in the first place. And I'm kind of reaching here, because I understand the dilemma that staff is facing in just pulling the preliminary information together.
Yeah. And in terms of trying to get a certain financial institution to give online access, they don't provide that, unfortunately. I did ask for it during the stay-at-home order, and they just said, email us if you want the information, but even then they don't provide it immediately.
So is the current process that they just email you a statement like a month later or so?
It's not even email, it's actual
Oh, they
physical
mail it to you. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the way it is now, it really, the council is not getting it in a timely manner. Not because of you, Albert, but because of your ability to gather the information.
Yes.
That seems like a problem to me.
It's not unusual. These tend to lag by at least 2 months, just because of the amount of time it takes to receive all the documents you need. So reviewing October and December, isn't unusual.
And the council's all right with that?
That's the way it's always been. We've always had this lag because there's no way, this is the soonest we can do it. So this 2-month lag has always existed.
And I realize how seemingly bizarre that sounds in this day when information seems so instantaneously available. I wish I had something better to say about it, but you know, we get the information as things are right now. We get the information when we get it, and staff turns it around as quickly as they can. I think it's highly desirable if the commission could review it, but we can certainly do that if council is willing to accept the additional delay that would be inherent in it.
Yeah.
Or would that mean changing our day, our meeting date to
And
a
that's the subject that Elaine and I discussed, and we were proposing or discussing possibly moving our meeting date from the 4th Thursday of the month to the 3rd Thursday of the month.
The question I have is, would that be satisfactory? Would that then be doable? I mean, if, you know, would staff, you guys can tell us. I mean, if we had the commission meetings a week earlier, would that be sufficient to meet the council's request?
The reason it isn't is because you would be meeting on Thursday. That is the date that the agenda packet actually would go out to the city council for the following day meeting. That's and the packet is normally, the agenda reports are normally due Monday or Tuesday of that week to go out on Thursday. You would be reviewing it on Thursday for the following Wednesday, so it wouldn't make it into the agenda packet. It would always be, I guess we could always do it as an additional doc. That is extra work for the clerk's office, but it's just the timing of when the city council receives their agenda packet. So they have enough time to review it before the Wednesday meeting.
And another thing is that in the schedule, we have only 10 months. So we always have to have 2 special meetings in the year, like definite special meetings.
And this report is the same report that we're talking about in item number 4, whether or not we have enough cash for 6 months.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Elaine, should we talk to the city manager and possibly have this topic on the agenda for the city council meeting and then to discuss this so that possibly not required to go to the commission? I don't know.
You know, it was a question that was raised at the council meeting. I can find out how the city manager would like this to come back to the council. Sometimes it can be as simple as an update in the city manager's report that the commission discussed it, and for, you know, whatever timing issues, whatever we want to say, it's not feasible at this point until the time at which we can have electronic access to all the documents we need. At that point, I'll find out whether or not he thinks this needs to go formally back to the city council or not, or just getting back to them through his weekly report is adequate. So I'll find out what his preference is.
Okay.
Perhaps you can include it with our budget request to replenish our quills and inkwells.
You know, the only other thing, and it does seem doesn't make much sense, is to still have the commission review it, but it would be like, for example, you'd be looking at it tonight, even though the council approved it essentially last night, but at least there would still be another more detailed eyes looking at it, even though it's afterwards. And if a mistake or something is caught, you know, we would take it to the council at the next meeting. I don't know. I think.
Well, we had a similar issue with the CAFRA, the budget report earlier this year. That the budget report that was submitted to the city council wasn't the one we approved.
Correct.
And we had all the problems with that. And we don't want to do that again with regards to treasurer's report. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll talk to the city manager. It might be that, I mean, there isn't a hurry. The council was not expecting an answer back at the next meeting. What I can do is put together a draft, probably a consent calendar item for the city council, explaining that the commission discussed this item and explain what the timing issues are, and that essentially the council's choice is to receive, instead of getting October data in December, they'd be getting September data in December, which would allow the commission to review it, or we just continue the way we've been doing it, where the commission doesn't review it ahead of time until such point at which we can receive our documentation much more promptly. That's a long way worded way of saying, but I can put together a report if you're comfortable with generally that idea. So that way the city council could decide maybe they're okay with getting September data in December in order to allow the commission to look at it first.
I think that's a good idea. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I think they should just be aware that, if it does go through the commission, we're looking at least, it sounds like at least a 3-week delay versus the schedule that they have in place right now.
Yes.
Sometimes it could be more, depending on when our meetings are. So for a report that, considering we have more than 12 months of cash sitting in an account, and this is a report about whether or not we have 6 months of cash, which obviously the answer is yes, but to go through that formal process, I think they should definitely keep that in mind about, are they okay with potentially waiting 2, 3, 4 weeks beyond what they're doing right now?
Okay. What I will do so that you feel comfortable with what's presented to the council is I'll draft the report. We'll put it on your next agenda so you can review and edit it, be comfortable with it before we put it on the council's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
Let's go back then, if we could, Chair.
Okay,
to
sure.
I'm assuming we're going to keep for now the item
Calendar.
number for the calendar the way we've presented it.
Yes, we are.
So that's approved. Okay.
We have a consensus on that, correct? Yes, okay. Now we move on to the approval of the minutes. The first set of minutes I have is for October 15th, 2020. Any comments on those minutes?
You should have, is it September, October?
Oh, did I miss the September? I'm sorry, I do have September. I'm sorry, September, pardon me, September 24th. Sorry, September 24th.
And you do have 3 minutes because of the missed November meeting, commissioners, if you're wondering why there's 2 months worth of minutes on this agenda.
Then we have the minutes for October the 15th. And the minutes for October the 22nd. Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make the motion to
Do we have
approve.
a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Do we have any other comments or discussion before we adjourn this meeting?
Just to reiterate my admiration to this body. You guys have weathered a huge storm and done stellar work, and have actually expanded the level of service provided to the city. My compliments, one and all.
Well, thank you. We're coming to the end of the year, and as all of us could attest, this has been a challenging year for this commission. I've enjoyed working with all of you. We really worked together very well, especially with our new interim assistant city manager, Elaine Aguilar. Lane, you've done an outstanding job, really have. And it's been such a pleasure to work with you, as well as the manager, Trent and Trashin. Your department worked very well with us. I being on the subcommittee, and I know Ed will agree with me on the subcommittee, we really appreciate what you do and all the details you go to, and then the workload that you have. We really appreciate everything you do, and thank you for doing such an outstanding job for our city.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. On behalf of the staff, thank you. They're an amazing bunch of staff you have in the finance department. They're a pleasure to work with, and you've all been a pleasure to get to know and work with. And I'm looking forward to a very fun January.
Good.
But have a good holiday, everybody.
I'm going to say I wish everyone a happy and safe holiday and a rewarding new year.
Happy
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good night,
Good night.
everybody.